Today on Locked On Red Wings, Detroit's skid continues as they lose their third straight, falling to Carolina 2-1 in a game that looked a lot less close than appeared on the score sheet.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's a host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a sports writer for CNG Newspaper, while I am a color commentator for Oakland University ACHA D1 Men's Hockey. And I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Red Wings your first listen every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can hear us everywhere, including watching Scotty's beautiful face on YouTube. I'm just okay. I'm like a solid 5 out of 10. Scotty, 10 out of 10. Look at that smile.
The shine on top of your head really kind of blows me out of the water. It's fantastic.
See, only type of shine that I do on this podcast is the reflection off the top of my head. Scotty, let's just dive right into it, man. First thought, that sucked. That sucked. I was really as encouraged as I was based on their performance in the Stadium Series, despite the loss, right? They still responded to McClellan's challenge to play better hockey. They had 46 shots in that game. I was coming on here and I was saying, this is not like the year prior where they went on a 7-game skid the week of the trade deadline. This is not like 2 years before where they dropped back-to-backs in a home-and-home against Ottawa. And then they respond to that, right, with a good performance, a really frustrating loss that I would hope they'd use as motivation, and 2 days off to recuperate and come back home with what may have been one of the worst performances they've played in Todd McClellan's era. And I just said that last week about the Thursday loss, the 5-2 loss to the Columbus Blue Jackets, and here I am again in a 2-1 loss saying the same exact thing. While the scores may have been vastly different, the score in this one much closer, the Red Wings were just 100% outworked and honestly outclassed in this hockey game against the Carolina Hurricanes. And so I come away from this loss very disheartened by the result rather than encouraged despite the loss like I was on Saturday.
Yeah, man, this was brutal, I think was my first thought. I mean, I think, honestly, my actual technical first thought was
expletives.
Expletives because of the hit at on Raymond and all the theatrics that kind of happened after the game. So I think my real first thought was screaming words that expletives at Carolina, but this was. I think you put it best when you said they got outclassed, man. Like this was absolute. Like they got bullied. They got their teeth kicked in the second period specifically. That was completely uncompetitive. One of the worst periods that we have seen in the McClellan era. The first period was, I get like maybe you could argue, like I think they ended the period better than they started it when it took them like 7 minutes to get a shot on net. And the third period was just complete desperation, and they didn't even really do much outside of the Soderblom goal, which was fantastic, and I'm sure we'll talk about. But it is very discouraging to have a team. This is not like a couple of years ago where if you played Carolina, it was, and especially depending on what point of the season it was okay. This team is 30 points better than you, right? Like this team is within like striking distance is irrelevant, but like this team is somewhat around your point total on the season. They're in the, I think, mid 70s in points on the year. Like this is a team that is on paper somewhat close to your caliber, and they got completely dismantled, and that's really discouraging.
Right, and I said it during the game on X, and Mickey Redmond said it on the broadcast too. The Red Wings were losing every single race to the puck. They were losing every single board battle. And that's something that's kind of plagued them for a while. I've always thought that they, for some reason, when the puck kind of gets rimmed around the boards, they struggle so hard at anticipating where that puck's going to go and winning that race. Or if they are along the boards, it just hop skips right over or they miss it. And it really reared its ugly head in this game when playing a team that's very aggressive on the forecheck. Because the Carolina Hurricanes are a very aggressive forecheck team. And you think back to that game they lost last Thursday against the Columbus Blue Jackets, the 5-2 blowout loss, a lot of that was the same issue, is they had no response to the forecheck that Columbus had. Detroit very much likes to slow things down and play by their pace. When a team's aggressive to them, they lose all sense of timing with how to play. And it especially comes through in the defensive zone. So, I mean, if you want to talk about difference makers in this game, it's just the defensive zone play and the inability to win races to the puck. Like, we're slowly seeing, not even slowly, you're seeing the kind of revert back to the dump and chase, but the dump and chase does you no good if you dump it and you lose the chase. It just turns into chip the puck out, chip the puck in, change
of possession.
Like, I am literally word for word reciting what I said was hurting this team under Derek Lalonde. And under Derek Lalonde, that was the game plan, was just, and at least with Lalonde, I'm trying to not be overly reactionary, but with Lalonde, limiting the high danger scoring of chances was the game plan. And for the most part, they did a good job, but the result of that was that they were late to getting the pucks along the boards. They were late in transition. They could only chip the puck out, chip the puck in, change, and then do it all over again. With this, right now, the way they're playing, and I know they're better than the way they're playing, right? By no means is this 3-game skid the end of the road, right? They're clearly, we've seen them play much better hockey, but right now they're not even limiting the high danger chances. And they're not getting the good goaltending they were earlier in the season or earlier in McLellan's tenure. Right now, in the defensive zone, they are a mess. And offensively, your best players aren't producing outside of Alex DeBrincat, who obviously in this game did not contribute. He saw his point streak snap. But, I mean, I'm not blaming DeBrincat by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just stating the top line isn't producing. So, like, right now, they're in a funk that they can't seem to break. And it's just the timing of it is terrible with this hockey team. Terrible, because it's the third straight year that going into the trade deadline that they've had a skid. And not every single one of these skids is created equal, right? Last year, they saw Dylan Larkin get hurt. That caused the skid, plus the flu bug in the locker room. 2 years ago, like, they were just simply not ready. But this year, with 2 7-game win streaks, and I knew the hot streak had to end eventually, I thought that they could be, and I still do think they can be, a team that sneaks into the wild card. But you got to prove it the week of the trade deadline, because this is when decisions are made. And so you have one more game going into the trade deadline on Thursday, right, against Utah at home, a winnable hockey game. You got to win that hockey game and prove to Yzerman that this team is worth investing in to some degree. And I do think they are, but, I mean, a lot can change in 24 hours based on results.
Yeah. We'll have a whole off day tomorrow to kind of break down the outlook going forward and what the Wings may or may not do at the deadline. But this game certainly put a sour taste in a lot of the fan base's mouth because of the similarities, the comparisons to previous years at this time. And I know that a lot of people are just kind of feeling like, here we go again.
Right. And the saving grace for today, right? The silver lining is that pretty much every other team you needed to lose lost as well. The Boston Bruins lost to the Nashville Predators. Props Nashville for getting the rare win and beating Boston regulation. The Columbus Blue Jackets lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning, so they didn't gain any ground on you in the first wild card either. Philadelphia lost. The Islanders did win, so they moved a little bit higher in the standings. But, like, for the most part, the results went your way. But while that's nice, at the same time, that means that this was a missed opportunity to create separation with those teams as well. So it just sucks. And, I mean, by no means, there's still 20-plus games left. Is the season over? But the way they play this trade deadline is going to be very telling at how Yzerman views this team. And I still think this team is worth a soft buy, right? Invest in this team. Say, like, I think this team can make the playoffs. Plus, there's not really anyone to sell. But at the same time, like, I would understand if Yzerman goes, okay, yeah, this team's clearly still not ready. But just at a certain point, it gets, as a fan and as a host, seeing this play out 3 straight years is exhausting. And I just need them to break the snide, get off the schneid on Thursday. Like, please, for the love of God.
Well, that's
for my sanity.
That's the thing is, like, it's very doom and gloom now because they're on a 3-game losing streak, and obviously they're on a huge skid going into the deadline here. But, like, if you win on Thursday, a lot of this tone changes pretty quickly. Especially depending on how you look in said win, how you win. So I mean, we'll see. I think that there's a lot of hockey left. Yeah.
There is a lot of hockey left. It's just frustrating right now with the deadline on Friday.
For sure.
We're going to take a break. When we return, we'll talk about, I don't really know if we got to your difference maker per se. Do you have the same difference maker as me, or did you want to go to a different direction?
No, I have a specific one.
Okay, we'll get to your difference maker on the other side of this break, and then we'll talk about notable performers. Stay tuned to Locked On Red Wings. When the game tips off, the NBA action is getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. You're going to love FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether you're backing your favorite team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, you never want to miss a chance. Plus, the app is so easy to use, and if you win, you can get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
You're ridiculous.
Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, your difference maker in this hockey game, who you got?
Yeah, we talked a lot about the Wings' offensive opportunities, and they're obviously you only get 1 goal on the board here, and it was late in the game. They were shut out for most of this game. Goaltending was great, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. Not for the Red Wings. I want to make that abundantly clear. Anderson was really great, and we'll talk about that for a second, but I genuinely do not think there was a player on the ice that was more in control of everything that was going on and the outcome of every single Red Wings offensive zone possession than Jacob Slavin. That was absolute masterclass of a performance. Had multiple, like 2-on-3, the Red Wings have the advantage. A 2-on-1, Red Wings have the advantage, and he's the only guy back, and it's broken up, and you don't even get a shot on net, and like that's why.
He was knocking pucks out of the air,
dude. Yeah, it is a great example of why. You can't just look at points for defensemen. Like, was this performance by Slavin specifically? I thought he was outstanding and got the better of Patrick Kane a few times on a break and in the offensive zone. I mean, he was absolutely everywhere, seemingly, anytime the Wings tried to set up shop there.
That's not where I was expecting you to go with your difference maker, but yeah, I completely agree. Jacob Slavin, that was a name that you heard a ton on the broadcast because he was involved in every single breakup of zone entries, every single pass breakup. He was everywhere on the ice. So yeah. I think that's a phenomenal pick and kind of an underrated one as well, as he's garnered a lot of respect from Four Nations, and a lot of people now suddenly know who Jacob Slavin is and realize, damn, he's worth that contract.
Right. Not to sound, like a jerk here, but like talking to Rowinski, he like name dropped Slavin specifically and was like, yeah, like he was one of the best players in the tournament, and everybody in the national media is kind of like talking about him and whatnot. And it's really cool to see. That was just cool hearing from like another player specifically, how talented and how great Slavin's been. So yeah, he was everywhere. And that's, kind of the expectation these days.
Well, then let's turn to Alex Lyon, because I thought that's who your difference maker was going to be, because he did not have a good performance, in my opinion. He made some very big saves, but because the thing is like, okay, it's great you made big saves, but if you allow one or two really soft goals each game, those big saves don't mean anything because it means your team is now playing from behind. So I really do not care that in this hockey game he had a .933 save percentage because neither of those two goals should have gone in. Now on the first one, right? To be fair, to be objective, there were two failed moments before that puck was released off the stick of Martinook, right? Patrick Kane did not back check. He just coasted. That was a guy that should have been taken by a forward. Patrick Kane was the closest forward. Martinook should have been covered because Ben Sherratt was reading more at Sider and going to behind the net for the rim around, which did not make it to him. Ben Sherratt himself overcommitted to the potential rim around because it did not go that direction when he should have been playing a little bit closer. So those two things did happen, and those two things were failures that happened before they got to Alex Lyon. But that was not a strong backhand shot by Martinook. That beat Alex Lyon. And then the second goal was just an embarrassment. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. He went behind the net, whiffed on it, and then scrambled to the front and couldn't get back in time. And that goal was just the nail in the coffin in what became a exhausting second period for the Detroit Red Wings. And okay, yeah, again, he made some big saves throughout the rest of the game and earlier before that. But those two goals, those soft goals, are killers, and it speaks to what is becoming a bigger issue, Scotty, which is the Red Wings goaltending, right? We talked 2 weeks ago about how the Red Wings goaltending really wasn't an issue. They had pretty solid goaltending. More often than not, the goaltending was giving you solid performances with a stinker here and there. We thought it was a good enough tandem to make it into the playoffs. But since we've said that, it's been lackluster performance after lackluster performance by both goalies. And it's really becoming concerning to me.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is something that we talked about as a huge concern of ours going into the year. And I was happily wrong about, right? Absolutely thrilled that was a ridiculously incorrect take up until, well, about this point, maybe a few weeks ago, if you want to get super nitpicky about it. And I mean, we talk all the time about Talbot exceeding expectations and how good he was there in the first few months and how he was really the only reason that the team wasn't completely like unrecoverably bad when Lalonde was still the coach. Like there was a lot of praise for that goalie room from us in the first half, a little over now, whatever, first 65% of the year. And I think it's weird because it might come from two different places, but I think that there's probably just like a little bit of burnout. Like Talbot is pushing 40 and like we didn't know how much production we were going to get out of him as is. And Lyon has played, more hockey in the last 20 months than he has all in his entire life, seemingly. So like, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a coach. I don't know if that's the reality of the situation, but that is something that we were worried about. Like these guys have been, both of them in their careers have been really good in short spurts. And I say Talbot in his career, that's not fair because he's had such a long career. But like Lyon has been good in short spurts, and Talbot we weren't worried about in short spurts because he is obviously still a really talented goaltender. He's just getting up there in age. And so the thought was, okay, well, maybe both of them can kind of just play off each other and you can make it through the year. But I think kind of reality is catching up with the situation. And now we're looking around going, okay, well, there's no consistent goaltender that you trust for a prolonged period of time.
It's a hell of a time for your goaltending to start showing its Achilles heel. Meanwhile, your scoring dries up at the same time, right? So you can no longer. Well, the two biggest things that were covering up for Detroit's weakness, thinness on the blue line on the PK have suddenly not been coming through anymore. And now you're starting to see how bad this team can look when goal scoring and goaltending aren't up to snuff. So again, it's just all about timing. It's really inconvenient that this happens for the third year in a row right before the deadline. So again, it doesn't change my approach personally to the deadline. They still have one more game left. You got to win against Utah, but it's just becoming it's frustrating. It's just so frustrating. And I think it's not reactionary to say it's frustrating. Scotty, let's head to another break. When we return, we'll talk about Elmer Soderblom because he was a breath of fresh air in this hockey game. He's been a breath of fresh air ever since he got called up. So stay tuned for that in Locked On Red Wings. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. All right, Scotty, Elmer Soderblom, he did score in this hockey game unassisted. Beautiful goal. Just the way he came off the boards, pulled that puck back, and just rifled it home. He was great all game long, actually earned himself a promotion to the top line. McClellan shook the lines up. He had Casper centering the fourth line because the bottom six without Rasmussen just looks really bad. You have Confer on the second line, Rasmussen out of the lineup, so you have Mott and Veleno were centering third and fourth lines, and those third and fourth lines weren't doing jack crap outside of Elmer Soderblom. So they shook it up, promoted Soderblom to the top line wing, moved Casper down the fourth line center, and the fourth line looked a lot better with Casper centering it. Go figure. But Soderblom gets rewarded with a goal in the top line, and I mean he's a bright spot with this team ever since his call up.
Yeah. I do want to, fair is fair. I didn't think Marco Casper had a very good game at all. He had a couple of really, really rough plays, especially in the corners in this game. But I think Soderblom, obviously the goal is what people are going to remember. It's what I'm going to remember. It was absolutely phenomenal. Disgusting. My roommate and I freaked out when it happened. It is wild to see someone that large with, people talk about the hands all the time. The skating on that play was brilliant, man.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely brilliant. Change of direction, catches the defender kind of off guard and makes him completely off balance. Just absolutely stellar footwork, handwork, all of it really, really great on that play. And yeah, man, this is a guy that certainly I think you can kind of pencil in as not only going to be here up here the rest of this season, but is probably going to be presumed to be in the lineup card at the start of the fall too. And in such a small sample size, it's crazy that is kind of now my assumption. But he's been that good, and I hope that they find more and more ways to get him involved because. Good things seem to happen when he's on the ice, and Lord knows we need good things to happen on the ice at the moment.
It's crazy to think that all you had to do to become an everyday NHL player is just keep moving your feet, not stop,
and not
skating.
Be afraid of contact, right? Like that was the thing.
Right.
Dude, you're massive. Like, don't be afraid to use the body. And now that he is not, and he knows how to use his size a lot more, then yeah, he's turned out to be a pretty dang good player.
Yeah, I wanted to shout out Moritz Seider too. He had 7 hits in this hockey game, a booming hit as well. 21 minutes. He got a little shorted on ice time. Shorted, I'm using liberally there because of Albert Johansson and Simon Edvinsson playing a 4.5-minute shift in the middle of the Red Wings. That was the epitome of what we were talking about in segment 1 and the Red Wings' inability to win a race to the puck and get the puck out.
They couldn't get the puck out of the zone for almost 5 minutes. For almost a quarter of a period. They couldn't get the puck out of their own zone, man.
Right. And that forced Johansson and Edvinsson rather, play 4.5 minutes on one shift, which is insane. But Seider, back to him, had a great game, I thought, from the back end. He led the team in shot attempt share at 55%, almost 56% at 5-on-5, 19 shot attempts for when he was on the ice, 15 shot attempts against, and expected goals for was 71%, 1.28 expected goals for at 5-on-5 when Seider was on the ice. That is pretty impressive in a game where your team barely touched the puck. But when he was on the ice, the Red Wings outshot the Carolina Hurricanes. So I thought Seider had a good game. Outside of Seider and Soderblom, though, not really much else to say.
Yeah, me neither. Just hope Raymond's okay.
Yeah, they said that
He'll win Thursday.
I think it was Ansar Khan from MLive reported that McClellan had said that he seems to be okay. He was just a little shook up.
Yeah,
so
I can't imagine he's not. I mean, big hit, obviously. He went down, elbow to the face. He'll do that. But I can't imagine that's like a long-term thing. Yeah, the only other thing is just, Rasmussen maybe back, question mark?
Yeah, Sheldon Dries got reassigned to the Grand Rapids Griffins, which one could assume, right? There's no official word yet, but one could assume that means Rasmussen will be ready to play on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm hoping for, because I think you saw Rasmussen has been, I wouldn't say a hot topic, right? Like he's not to the level of Justin Hull or Jeff Petrie levels of vitriol, but there have been a lot of conversations about where has Michael Rasmussen been this year in terms of production, and I think you saw how much value he brings to this team in the 3 games that he has missed since taking that headshot, 4 games that he has missed since taking that headshot. So, yes, I would very much looking forward to Rasmussen reinserting into the lineup.
Yeah, hope so, man. Hope so. I think we talk about it all the time, but it not only helps the line that they're being added to, but then inherently everyone under that as well for depth purposes. So, yeah, especially with Copper out, they're going to need somebody like that up the middle here. So
correct. Hopefully we also acquire somebody up the middle at the deadline. I would appreciate that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that tomorrow, eh?
Yes, sir. All right, Scotty. Any final thoughts?
I don't think so, man. Tomorrow we talk trade deadline. Tomorrow we talk trade deadline. Friday we recap the game and probably talk more deadline. And
yeah,
big week.
Friday's going to be weird with the recap and talking about.
Well, they have to do anything.
Oh, that's right.
They have to actually do something to, talk. So.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting with the deadline being on Friday because of the way we record. Anyway, we'll figure it out. Same time, same place. Your team.
We ball.
Every day. Oh, we ball.